Hello guys, it's Levelon Studios and welcome to the part 5 of this walkthrough series. In the previous video, we learned how to create this simple animation. In this video, I'll be showing you how I created this cool animation sequence. Please, if you're enjoying this series so far and you haven't yet subscribed, please do subscribe and hit the notification bell. And now without further ado, let's get right into it. Creating a new scene, I imported my croc model and positioned it like so. Then I brought in a ground plane and extruded this edge. Afterwards, I brought in a cube for the croc to rest upon, and then I began to tweak it and position it like so. Then I went ahead to bevel the cube and then position the croc to better rest on the cube. I shaded smooth and added some loop cuts to the cube, and then I enabled the camera to view option. Afterwards, I began to tweak and expand the environment. And then I enabled the align camera to view option. So then I began to tweak the camera angle to get the perfect view. After setting up the camera, I went ahead to create the cool particle effect on the croc using geometry nodes. So I went over to the geometry nodes tab and I created a new geometry node setup. And then I brought in the instance to point node and plugged it in. Afterwards, I went ahead to bring in the distribute points on faces node. So with this setup, I now brought in a UV sphere which will represent the particles that I'll use to be scattering on the croc. So I shaded smooth and I scaled it down to a desirable dimension. Afterwards, I drag and drop the UV sphere into the node setup and plugged it into the instance to point. Then I went ahead to tweak the scale value of the instance to point as well as the density value of the distribute points on faces. Then I brought in the random value node to make things interesting. Also, I went over to the group tab to create a new socket input. and then I brought in the map range node. So then I proceeded to connect the input socket to the random value node, and then I plugged in the random value node to the map range node, and then the map range node to the scale value of the instant to point node. So this is to control the scale range of the particles. Afterwards, I renamed the input socket and created an additional socket especially for the map range node. So with this, I began to tweak the seed value and the density value on the distribute point on faces. Afterwards, I inserted keyframes on the scale value to create this simple animation. And then I went over to the graph editor to tweak the curves of the animation. So I repositioned the keyframes on the timeline. And then I proceeded into animating the camera. So I created this subtle zoom in animation on the camera. Then I went ahead to create the subtle rotation in the last part of the animation for the camera. And then after some few playbacks, I tweaked the keyframes a little. After everything was all good, I went ahead to create the particle animation on the strap as well. After creating the scaling animation for the particle, I proceeded to creating a material transitional animation for the croc, that is from orange to green. So I started out by duplicating the principal shader, and then I brought in my textures, that is for the color green of the croc. Afterwards, I brought in a mix shader node to mix both textures together. Afterwards, I brought in the color ramp node. And then I plugged it to the mix shader. Then I proceeded in bringing in the noise texture, and then I plugged it into the color ramp as well. To create the animation, I went ahead to position the black and white ramp in their respective position. And then I began to tweak the values of the noise texture and the mapping node. Afterwards, I began to animate the position value of the black and white ramp. Then I made some playback. So it was a fairly basic animation, but I wanted things to be more interesting. So I went ahead to tweak the detail value of the noise texture. And then once more I made a playback to check the animation. And everything was looking just great. So I went over to the graph editor and I began to tweak the curves just to polish the animation a little bit. So then I began to make additional tweaks to the noise texture as well as the map node. After I was done with that, I went on to create the takeoff spinning animation that you saw at the end of the clip. So I started by inserting my first location and rotation keyframe, and then I moved forward in the timeline and then moved the clock upwards. and rotated it 360 degrees and inserted a location and rotation as well to create this simple spinning animation. I went on to insert extra keyframes to add more detail to the animation. I also began to animate the camera to follow the movements of the croc when it's taking off. And then I went over to the graph editor to make some minor tweaks to the curves. After I was satisfied with the animation, I began to prep for render. And guys, the particle dispersion effect was created in After Effects, so I had to render the green particles, the croc and the background separately in order to create the effect in After Effects. So I will end this video here. I don't want it to be too lengthy. So in the next video, I will show you guys how I created a dispersion effect in After Effects. So hit the notification bell, and if you are enjoying this series so far, be sure to subscribe. If you wish to support me, then you can purchase my 3D assets on TableScript and CD Trader. I will really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the part 6 of this series. Take care.